Vigilante, he who keeps vigil diligently. Watch and pray, lest they break through and take you. Stay awake, dude, high stakes, they wanna rake you. Make you break rules, stay true. Vigilante, out there fixing fences, guard your senses. The enemy is relentless repentance. This is a game of inches, you could die at any minute. Better be on the defensive. For instance, Lucifer fell in an instant.
Tell the truth.
The truth was held in arms as an infant, sinless and innocent. Suffering in the flesh, and his love for mankind, he put death to death. Vigilante, you got to be vigilantissimo. Believe me, it isn't meant to be easy. Even though you see so many slings and arrows, narrow escapes. Israel delivered from Pharaoh. Strange wonder, when mine eye saw evil, I wasn't cut asunder, I was numbered God's people. Lightning strikes, thunder rolls, souls are saved. I'm old enough to say, back in the day, I started rapping, zigzagging through traffic. My strategy was such a tragedy struck. My saving grace was faith in God, cause I was madly in love. Vigilante, you can put the gun away, it's Sunday. There's one way to be saved, some say come play. We can run this the fun way, hide the sun. I'd rather cry till it rises new and burns through so you can purify my iris, learn to fly. And we can take off like runway someday. Won't be no gunplay, no, won't be no gunplay. Apocalyptic, when the eschaton bomb drops, it's clear you'll know it's near when I hear my first song drop. Penitential verses, no curses, a wordsmith, hit you with the scripture till you get the picture. Vigilante, they say you break curfew, stay out late and fight crime at nighttime. I write rhymes, not quite my right mind, my sight line inside my mind's eye, steady level on the devil till it's my time to die.
Okay, we're here. Welcome everybody to my icon corner. I have today here with me Jerry from Exposing Powerful Lies, and so we're excited for today's show. We had a little bit of a miscommunication regarding the scheduling, but we're here now. I can't hear you. You're muted.
I slept in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Post liturgy nap went a little long. Let's just say it like it is. I passed out. Not the first time I've done that either. I'm very professional, and I often sleep through the start time, sadly. So you know.
My priest says that you're not Orthodox if you don't take a nap on Sunday afternoon.
Yes, exactly. Yes, well, thank you so much for having me here, man. I'm excited. I'm glad we got to do it, and yeah, glad we can do it now.
Sure.
Better late than never, as they say.
Yeah, thank you for showing up. So, well, today we have chosen. Jerry has an area of expertise, which is foraging for wild plants and also medicinal plants.
Yes.
And so that's going to be our stream, our topic for the stream today. But first, please introduce yourself for those who do not know who you are.
Yeah, so my name's Jerry. My channel's Exposing Powerful Lies. I do a little bit of, everything over at my YouTube channel. We just really, it's just sort of an outlet for myself and my personality. I just go on there, make videos about whatever I'm interested in at the time. So it's hard to sort of define other than it's just a channel where I talk a lot about Orthodoxy, have a lot of guests on, priests, different people, but then I also do other topics as well. And as for the foraging and stuff, I was really interested that you asked me to speak on that because I do have that in my my YouTube's about section, but nobody ever asked me to talk about that, so I'm excited to get a chance to speak on that, and it's something I'm definitely passionate about. I've been doing it now for about 12 years. And the very first video I ever uploaded to YouTube was me foraging behind 7-Eleven. Like I was at work, and I just made this little handheld video of like, the stuff you can find behind a random, gas station, stuff like that. This terrible, terrible video. But the point is that that's sort of how I got my start 5 years ago on YouTube. And yeah, I think it's a great subject, a great skill to have, and definitely one of that old wisdom that not a lot of people maintain, but I think that you can learn a lot about sort of the nature of medicine through this stuff, and just I think it's a reflection of part of how God's made the world, that there's just so much abundance around us. There's so much food that can help a human being have a better life and have a better experience and freedom from sickness. With all this stuff, it's right there, and we don't even realize it. So often people have illnesses or sicknesses, and there's things that could help them that's right in front of them, and they have no idea.
Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that like maybe 99.9% of my calories come from the store.
Right. Well, same. I mean, I'm not, living in the wild or anything, but when it comes to medicine, when it comes to treating certain illnesses, I pretty much go all natural with it. Obviously, if I break my leg or get shot or something, I'm going to go to the hospital. But for chronic illnesses, for things that are, lifestyle and food related, there's a lot you can do to mitigate symptoms with just diet, lifestyle, and certain medicinal plants. That sort of ties in with, like I said, the nature of medicine, which is something I wanted to cover. This idea that I think in America and in the Western world, we have this mindset about medicine being like this like magic pill you take, and it's sort of like this external thing. You take it and it heals you. You know what I mean? I need the medicine that's going to heal me. Whereas in reality, most medicine, what it's doing is it's giving your body the building blocks to heal itself. And I think that's a really important thing that people need to understand, is that, your body is capable of healing itself. And it's just from a lack of nutrition or a lack of these basic fundamental things that, sometimes it has trouble doing that. If you think about your body making new cells every day, right? It's constantly making new cells, constantly trying to regenerate. But with our diets and lifestyles now and stuff, we don't always have the easiest time doing that. But there's a lot of people know about the sort of home remedy stuff nowadays, stuff like apple cider vinegar for what do you call it, heartburn, diabetes, blood sugar, stuff like that, or ginger for stomach aches, or what else, also all sorts of herbal remedies and stuff. That's become very popular. But man, I'm gonna try to keep a through line here, because there's so much I would like to speak on about this. I can tell you about how I got started with it if you'd like.
That was going to be my next question. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, about 12 years ago, I was staying in Florida, and I found this book called "Stalking the Wild Asparagus" by Yul Gibbons, and I hadn't heard anything about it. Just the sort of cover and title sort of grabbed me, so I picked it up, and it wasn't a field guide necessarily, and it wasn't a biography. It was sort of a blending of both, and it was just this really fascinating story about this guy who lived a life very passionate about foraging foods, whether it's from the ocean or whether it's from the field or anything like that. He just loved being able to go into the bush, basically make a full meal and serve it to his friends and family and stuff. And so from reading that book, and his passion just rubs off on you. I highly recommend that book to anybody who's interested in the subjects, because you do learn a lot about different plants, and there are little like hand-drawn pictures of these plants and stuff. So it's sort of like one of these old-fashioned field guides, but it's really not a field guide. It's more of like this biography and his story of how he learned this and how he became this forager. And it just, ever since reading that, it just sort of bit me with the bug, really inspired me. It really gave me this big passion to want to learn more about plants and want to be able to do that myself.
I've always thought it would be good to be able. I'd always wanted to learn how to pick mushrooms. I always thought that would be like a great, I don't know, hobby, because you get to go out into the trees and the forest and just kind of hike around. But it seems like for mushrooms, that's something you usually want to learn that from someone else, like a guide, so that you're not picking anything poisonous. I
Well,
mean,
that's a good point, but that extends to wild plants as well, right? Because there's definitely poisonous lookalikes. Something like wild carrot, super easy to identify. A lot of people, their first plant might be a wild carrot they identify, but it's also they have a poisonous lookalike with hemlock, right? So you got hemlock that looks a lot like Queen Anne's lace or wild carrot, and obviously if you mix those up, you're not gonna have a good time. So, um, anytime you're foraging, you know what I mean? That's the number one thing is to keep in mind the fact that there are poisonous lookalikes out there, and that obviously you should never eat anything unless you're 100% certain and you know for a fact it's the thing. And so basically the way that anybody does it, the way that any forager does is you go one plant at a time, one mushroom at a time, and you introduce yourself to plants. And it's this really weird thing that happens that once you see the plant in nature, and once you're able to identify it, and once you know it, then you start to see it everywhere, and then it starts to pop out to you, and it's this really cool thing. And I in the book he talks about how certain Native American tribes used to have this ritual where when they would first find a plant, they would bury a little tobacco in the front of the plant and they would sit there with it for a minute. And he talked about how that was sort of like he could sort of connect that was their sitting there, taking it in, being able to identify it and see it and sit with it. And then from then on, they were able to sort of find it out in the wild, because then you know what you're looking for. You get what I'm saying? It's like a familiarity that you build with these sort of plants. Now, today's day and age with Facebook, with these apps that you can take a picture of a flower and it can give you a pretty close, guesstimate of what it is. When you've got that level and you've got all of these experts in these groups on Facebook, it's very easy to get into foraging. It's very easy to get into identifying the plants. And most people will tell you the same thing. Don't eat anything, go out there for fun, learn to identify the stuff, and you'll start to learn plants one at a time. And once you do, then you can sort of get an idea for what's safe to eat, what's not safe to eat. Mushrooms are super fun to go hunting for. I've got quite a few that I know how to spot. Quite a few rare ones that I've found. I found reishi. I found lion's mane. I found stuff like that in the woods, which is fun. But yeah, I mean, it's just like anything, and it takes time. And if you go slow, there's other things to keep in mind too, like closeness to roadways and pollution, right? So they say like you shouldn't eat anything that grows, within 100 feet of like a roadway from all the car exhaust and stuff.
Oh, okay.
And so that kind of cancels out, a lot of around here, because we live in civilization and there's roads everywhere, right? So,
right.
And it also makes you think about backyard gardens and stuff. It's like, oh man, like what about that though? That's not 100 feet away from the road. But the thing is that, like I said, you can just go to teach yourself how to do these things, how to find these things. And that's what I've done. I'll go anytime I take a walk in any grassy area. I'm always looking for plants. I'm always looking to find new ones and to find old ones. And even if you can't eat it, you can still learn to identify it and learn to see where it grows, why it grows, where it grows, stuff like that. And then if you ever are in a place that's more wild, that's more, not so polluted, then you've got the skills to be able to know what it looks like and to know, where to look for it.
So did you teach yourself? Is this a completely...
Yep. So I read that book, right, about 12 years ago. It might even have been longer than at this point. It might have been like 13 or 14 years ago. And like I said, it just, the bug sort of bit me, where I just sort of, his passion for this thing just sort of, I just got it. And you know what I mean? I just sort of, this little fire ignited within me. And then basically I just, wild carrot that grows, wild strawberries grow everywhere around. Okay. So then you go and you find it, there's wild blueberries, wild, blackberries. And then, like I said, once you find it and you're able to, harvest it and it's good, you just sort of keep wanting to go on. And then, I learned how to find, this plant, and this plant, and this plant. And that very much tied in with my own passion on medicine and, sort of, I don't want to say holistic medicine or herbalism, but it's basically, just like natural remedies and stuff like that. I was very much fascinated in that. I had a lot of health problems growing up. So I was very much interested in finding sort of alternative therapies for sort of my health problems. And that sort of snowballed into my friends. Every time my friends would have some issue, I'd go and find some, remedy to help them mitigate their symptoms and stuff like that.
So what are some of the the remedies what's something you've treated successfully with?
Right. Well, like so I have pretty bad arthritis. I used to do the train hopping, hitchhiking, hobo thing. So I walked for 25 miles a day, like every day for a long time. So my knees are just like destroyed, and so I also have had stomach issues like chronic IBS and stuff for a long time since I was a little kid, and so when I learned about ginger and ginger tea, turmeric tea, and mixing it together, black pepper, not only did it help the arthritis, but it also helped the stomach problems like a lot, and so I would make that every day. Anytime my arthritis would flare up, I could drink that and it goes away like that. I mean,
With
it's like
fresh turmeric, or is that
yeah. So I'll get like ginger root and I'll take it and grate it up into like a little mush. Basically, put it in a cheese grater and just grate it up. And then you take a little bit of turmeric root, grate it up, a little bit of fresh black pepper, crack it, put it all in a little tea baller, make a tea out of it, and it's amazing, man. You can just take a couple sips of it, and all of a sudden you just feel like the blood flow into your knees, and it
Really?
because it's super anti-inflammatory.
It works.
So it absolutely works. So a lot of our problems in today's day and age come from inflammation, right? Where we eat a lot of sugar, we eat a lot of crap that causes inflammation in our bodies, and so things like that are very powerful anti-inflammatories. That's it's very helpful. I mean, turmeric is one of the most studied herbal remedies out there. They say it does as much as 13 different prescription pharmaceuticals. Like they've heavily studied that because that's a very popular one. But it does absolutely work. But like I said, that's a lot of this stuff is just old wisdom. Like one great example from that book is strawberries. So a lot of people, maybe like I've done this with my grandparents, we used to go out to a strawberry farm and like pick baskets of strawberries and stuff, and you buy pick your own. But there's a lot of strawberries that grow in the wild. Like I live in New York, and every other lawn you walk through, there's strawberries going, and most people have no idea because they mow their lawn, and so the plant never comes to fruit. Or if it does, the animals get to it, the bunnies and the whatever, the woodchucks and stuff like that, they all eat it first. But back in the old days when we didn't have access to fruit in the wintertime and things like that, people used to suffer from scurvy a lot more than obviously we do now. I mean, they would go all winter eating dried meats and dried vegetables and canned fruit and stuff like that. They wouldn't have access to as much vitamin C. And so one of the things about scurvy is your gums loosen and your teeth start to feel like they're going to fall out, or they might actually even fall out. Well, this guy talks about how basically a lot of these people would, when they would feel their gums get loose, they'd go out into their, in the woods or into their yard or where they live, and they would have a spot where they knew that the strawberries grew, and so they would dig out the snow and they grab the strawberry leaves because they last all year, and they take a bunch of these strawberry leaves and they would make a tea out of it and drink it. And those strawberry leaves are so high in vitamin C that it was like you just drink a tea of that for 3 days and your
Wow.
teeth tighten up. And so there's a lot of stuff like that where there's plants that are basic nutrition that provide, like I said, they provide you with that basic building block that keeps you healthy. And so that's sort of the way that herbal medicine works. It's not this idea that there's this like magic compound out in the world that will give you the thing that'll heal you. It really does come down to nutrition and hormones and basic like things in the food that we need, right?
Would that be considered homeopathic medicine? Is that?
Yeah, so I mean that's a word for it for sure. Holistic medicine, homeopathic. It just basically is a word for not pharmaceutical, not modern allopathic medicine, which is,
Right.
the sort of take 3 of these and call me in the morning,
Yeah. I don't know. For some reason, that never somewhere that gets into people's head. For me, I was always resistant to taking medicine.
Yeah.
I was trying not to for whatever reason.
Right.
But if it's like a natural remedy, then I'm kind of more open to it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's pros and cons, right? And it gets a bad rap a lot of times because people tend to overhype it. They tend to act like this thing's whenever they find like like say the ginger tea or something, they act like it's a cure all, like it's this magic, elixir of life or something. And it's good to keep a cool head about these things, because some people do sort of fall into that extreme, and they hype it up. And that's something that you find far back, like when you go and you read the old herbalist guides. I believe the one was called Culpeper's. It's a very famous old herbalist medicine guide from 1800s or before, and some of the stuff it's got in there is just so wildly exaggerated. And it's like,
Oh, really?
one plant or one remedy, it cures 150 different things. It's like, what does this thing not do? Like, so it's something that goes back a long time, and a lot of the stuff isn't highly studied, right? There's a lot of the herbal remedies and stuff, they know it works because it's been practiced for so long, and it's had a tradition in country medicine and folk medicine, where they know that they've used this for 300 years to do this, but they don't know why it does it. They don't know how it does it, right? You've got certain plants like turmeric and ginger where scientists have studied it and they can give you the basic breakdown of what's going on. But then you've got other plants that aren't so well known. So much like anything else, I'd say try it if it's safe. You know what I mean? You have to do your research. You have to look into it. Something like turmeric and ginger, because it does have such a strong effect on your body, it can mess you up if, let's say, you're on medication and you try taking it, right? So if you're already on something like blood thinners and then you start drinking something like turmeric tea, it can absolutely mess you up because it has the effect of blood thinning on the body. So there's stuff like that. You really do have to be careful. Obviously, consult your physician. This isn't medical advice, people. I'm not telling you to take anything, but yeah. So, but there is, I mean, the best example I can give for herbal medicine really is opium, because that is like the sort of poster child for herbal medicine and its effectiveness, right? Because everybody knows, like, for hundreds of years, right, if they needed to do surgery, they would give people opium. And it wasn't until the sort of scientific revolution when they started discovering active alkaloids and started synthesizing these alkaloids like morphine that they were able to get the doctors out of the field and into the laboratory. Because back in the day, if the doctor saw that you were hurting from something, they'd go out into the woods and gather up some medicine and make you a tea or make you a tincture, make you a poultice if you had a wound, and treat you that way. And basically they started to want to be able to have a specific dose, do a specific thing for a specific type of person in a specific weight class, right? And if you take herbs, they have all different alkaloids in them, and one plant will have a high amount, one plant will have a low amount. There's no way for you to standardize it. So it was always a sort of by eye thing. And it's not to say they weren't able to manage it. It's fine. I mean, there's always within this gradient, within this area of effectiveness. But obviously, if they can give you 100 milligrams of morphine and know that it's going to do X effect, right, they would rather do that. And so that sort of extended out to other medicines. But I always use opium as the example because it's such a strong effect that it has in the body, and so many other plants have similar type effects. They're just not as noticeable as something like that. But that's a great example for sort of the effectiveness of the herbalism of the plants extended out to other ones as well.
And of course, we know how, whatever Rockefeller medicine kind of locked down the whole field, because you can't really put a patent on nature and make any money off of it. But
very true.
You create a new something, you alter nature by one molecule, and then all of a sudden you can make money.
Exactly. Well, look at like Tylenol and aspirin and stuff like that, right? So like
Sure.
they say that stuff comes from like black cherry bark. People use that stuff for a long time for curing headaches, and yeah. But if they get it into a pill form, they can patent it and sell it and make money. And so much of that modern medicine is that it's a business, and it's a cliche at this point, but it really is. Like, healthy people aren't good customers. So obviously
Right.
they want people to be chronically ill. They want people to have issues that keep coming back up. Yeah.
Did you ever, in all your foraging experience, get sick, eat the wrong thing? Is that
Honestly, I don't think so. I have had experiences where I had to learn about that turmeric thing I told you about, and the blood thinner thing. Like when I was young and gung ho, I remember I made I was with my ex girlfriend at the time, and her grandma and grandpa were with us, and I made them like a curry. You know what I mean? But I put like all fresh herbs and spices in there. I remember she ate it. And she's like, oh man, I don't feel very good. And I was like, oh no, I hope I don't kill this lady. Like using all this stuff, like, oh my goodness. So obviously that was a learning experience for me. I was very young at the time and very much into it, and didn't put two and two together that like, oh yeah, this stuff is strong and it might, have a bad effect on an old person on medication. Like, duh. Um, I never had that, but I have a lot of friends that are into foraging who did believe that they ate wild hemlock and poison hemlock instead of carrot, and so they were freaking out and went to the hospital and stuff. I was always super careful not to eat anything unless I knew exactly what it was, and it sounds crazy, like, oh, how could you be sure like the plant is the plant and not like something poisonous? But it's pretty easy to tell. It's hard to explain, but it's very easy to tell. Like once you know a plant and okay, there are no poisonous lookalikes to this, you know what I mean? You're good to go. There's tests that you can do to test the toxicity of a plant. So, like for mushrooms, for example, people always get the wrong idea with mushrooms. They think that like you can't even touch this stuff. It's so poisonous, right? If you find a poison mushroom, you can't even don't touch it. Don't get anywhere near it. It's scary. But really, I mean, what a lot of mushroom hunters will do, mycologists will do, is they'll take, if they're unsure, sort of a field test where they'll take a small piece of it and they'll just touch it to their lip, and they'll just wait 5 minutes and see what happens. And if there's any tingling, if there's any sort of reaction, okay, then obviously it's bad. If
Oh,
there's not,
really?
yeah, if there's not, then take a small piece, put it in your mouth, let it sit there for 10 seconds, spit it out, then wait another 5 minutes and see if anything happens. If it doesn't, then they can eat a
Wow.
little bit, wait
Oh,
10 minutes, wait an hour, see what happens. Yeah. So that's a test I've heard people do. Obviously, I'm not encouraging anybody to do that. I'm saying people who are experts in this, right, will sometimes use that field test. But nowadays you really don't need to rely on things like that. You can there's so many good resources for field books, and also just the groups like on Facebook that I'm on, which are mushroom identification groups, wild identification groups, the apps I was telling you about where you can take pictures and identify the stuff. There's no reason for you to even have to do a test, because you will get a positive ID if you look into it. You know what I mean? It's really, there's not as many things as you think there are. You know what I mean? There's not as
okay.
many like that's one thing that's really interesting, is that starting out, when I would look into a field, it was just chaos to me. You know what I mean? It was just utter chaos. Didn't know what I was looking at. It was all grass. It was all grass and weeds. Now, when I look into a field, it's order. I see the order of it. I see why it is the way it is, right? I see, okay, it's not just okay. That's a field of goldenrod, right? And then that's a field of asparagus. Of course, that grows in the swampy lands with this type of soil, right? And okay, so that's where the dandelions are, and the dandelions are going to grow with the plantain. And the plantain is going to grow, near the nettle and stuff like that. So it's like you see all of this stuff, and it's amazing to see just how much is edible and helpful to humans. I mean, and one really fascinating thing is that it comes up where people are. So when people think about foraging, I think a lot of times they often think about a desert island somewhere, right? Like, oh, if you're trapped on a desert island, you got to like forage for food and stuff, right? They think about in the woods, in the forests, right? And they think about like in the mountains, and those are like the worst places to forage, like literally, like forests, island, mountains. These are terrible places to forage because, number one, big trees blocking out the sun. There's not much growing in there other than like mushrooms and stuff. The wild food, the medicinal food, most of it grows where people make their civilizations. So it grows near fence rows, it grows the open fields, grows near sidewalks, grows near old barns, grows near anything where people are. That's where the food and the medicine pops up. And I think that's such a, yeah, absolutely. So a lot of times, like, say you're walking and there's a big field and then there's a tree line. If you just walk that tree line, you'll find a lot of the stuff. Anytime there's like a fence row or a tree line or something, you'll find a lot of stuff over there. You'll find a lot of herbal plants that you can make teas out of. You'll find a lot of food, a lot of fruits, a lot of things like blackberry and raspberry, which again, I just feel is part of God's design of like put the food where the people are. You know what I mean? Instead of putting it hard to find. But yeah, go on.
Sure. And I'll let's see. So Jerry, of course, has his cigarette fund that we need to contribute to. So if we get any super chats coming in, we'll split them. We'll split the revenue with Jerry. What kind of what do you smoke? What do you kind of?
American Spirit Turquoise.
Nice.
When I'm not smoking the garbage cheap reservation cigarettes that are Senecas,
So
hey, this is my favorite herbal remedy. I will say, this is my favorite herbal plant.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I smoked a pipe before the stream to get my neurons firing in my frontal lobe. It does have a little bit. It does have a benefit. There are I think I use tobacco medicinally.
Absolutely, there are 100. It gets a bad rap because obviously they do like to spray radioactive stuff on this and make it much less healthy than it is in nature. If you just grow your own tobacco, it's not nearly as bad for you. But yeah, it gets a bad rap. I mean, again, I'm very suspicious of any sort of establishment propaganda. Whenever there's big advertisements on TV, like, quit smoking, I'm like, yeah, okay, but I'm an idiot, so I don't know.
So what I'm curious about is, so you were saying you were a hobo. That's kind of sounds interesting to me. So you described using turmeric to help with your inflammation and stuff. So when you were a hobo, I don't know much about this, but
yeah,
I picture a hobo being hungry a lot of the time. And maybe was this the case? And were you able to maybe alleviate your hunger by going out and finding food in the wild when you were a hobo? Or tell some of that about that.
So absolutely, I wasn't often hungry because I was a pretty damn good hobo. I was pretty damn good at doing it. I was a traveling musician, so I had it down to a science where I was making good money, and I would make money at a town, save up until I had enough to travel to the next town, and then
go to
rinse and repeat.
Maybe go to a coffee shop and play songs, or what? Did you?
Well, I had my ukulele, and I would go to big cities, right? So New Orleans, Denver, Chicago. I would find where the big bar strip was. Where's the place where all the bars are that has the happening nightlife, where all the young hipsters and people are out walking around. And I would post up on a street corner from Wednesday till Sunday, from 4 p.m. till the bars close, 4 a.m., and I just stand out there singing my songs, do it loud, put on a show. And especially you catch that bar crowd leaving when the bars are closed and everybody's drunk, they'll just shower you in money. So we made a lot of money doing that. And hopping trains was a goal of mine from the time I was 13, 14 when I first met the first hobo I ever met. So that was something that I long wanted to do. And when I finally got the chance to learn from an experienced rider how to do it, like, I jumped at it and basically didn't look back. I did it for about 8 years on and off, coming back, going back out, coming back, going back out. And it coincided with my discovery of foraging. And so it became a sort of part of it. It became a sort of part of my lifestyle was, we'd make up money, buy a bunch of food at Walmart or whatever, take it into the woods, we cook it up. And yeah, if I found berries or something, if I found, something to add to the meal, we would use it, right? If I found herbs to mix with it, we would use it. The main thing is like fruit, nuts, berries, stuff like that. That's amazing. That's always really good stuff. The best stuff to forage. But was most fun about the traveling aspect is that I kept getting to see new localities. I kept getting to see new climates and learn about new plants.
Huh.
That was the most fun part about it. Is anytime I got to a new place, I wanted to see what grew there. You know what I mean? And it was really fun. But it was also really eye-opening that like so much of the eastern United States is the same. Like until you get down to like southern Georgia, it's pretty much all the same. You've got a little bit of variation. You've got certain plants maybe only grow, Middle East, like Kentucky, Tennessee, but then once you get down to Georgia, once you hit like Savannah, that's when you start hitting that tropical sort of climate, and you start to get whole different ball game, right? Up until it becomes tropical, it's all sort of the New York stuff. It's all sort of the lush green stuff, and then once you hit the tropics, then it's so different. It's a completely, then you got palm trees and coconut trees and lizards running around and all that stuff. But yeah, there was so much of it where I was amazed at how much extended over. But then once you go out west, it's a whole other ecosystem, a whole other group of plants, a whole other group of mushrooms that grow. And so it's really fascinating how many different geography, climates are in this country. It's very fascinating to me that we have desert, we have tropics, we have the sort of Rocky Mountain, Denver, Wild West desert town, and then you've got something like Vermont, which is just lush, green, beautiful, something like Maine, something like Los Angeles, something like Seattle. It's amazing how many different types of locations there are, and you can really see a little bit of everything if you just travel this country. You can see a little bit of everything when it comes to foraging for wild plants.
So how far west did you get?
So we went as far west as Cheyenne. So for 8 years, every time I would get as far west around Denver, Wyoming, Vegas. It was always, we never went beyond that point. It was so funny because multiple times we had rides to go to, the West Coast. And every time it was like, okay, should we take the ride to, to Salt Lake City and then on to San Francisco? Or should we go see our friend in Tennessee? So I was like, well, let's go to Tennessee, because it was always more, I guess, familiar and comfortable. And at the time I was doing it, there were so many, and it's even worse now. There were so many like street kid hobos and stuff doing that in the West Coast. It's like a cliche. Like there's so many kids who they're not even travelers. They just live the street life, but they travel up and down the West Coast, and like that's all they do, right? And so I knew that it would be much more difficult for us to survive over there and make money because the thing was so blown out. And also, I just wasn't into the hippie culture, and I wasn't into that. I wanted to see the redwoods. I wanted to see the beaches and stuff. But I was like, I'll do that when I'm not homeless. You know what I mean? I'll do that when I'm not being the hobo because, I over here on this side of the country, pretty much from the Midwest all the way over to the East Coast, it's just rarer. It's just easier to survive. It's just, I'm more of a novelty. People aren't so burned out on the idea of a hobo. They're willing to, throw down $5 if you're busking. But West Coast, good luck, man. Yeah, busking. So that's what they call playing music on the street.
Oh, okay.
Busking. Yeah, like throwing a hat out and playing a guitar and singing.
Oh,
busking.
Okay.
Yep.
Was that dangerous? Did you?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, anytime you're living on the street, there's danger to it. There's, it's the real world, and so there's street people out there, there's sketchy people out there, gangs, but it's much like anything. If you learn how to navigate, that's the best part about my experience is that it gave me real world experience. It taught me about how the world works. I saw a lot of danger. I saw a lot of people getting messed up, and learned how to avoid those situations, learn how to spot danger from a mile away, so I could keep me and my girl away from it and avoid it, Best offense is a good defense, as they say, right? You want to not put yourself in the stupid situation, and that's the way that you protect yourself. You don't want to have to deal with it once you're already in it. You want to avoid getting in it in the first place. And so I would treat everybody with respect. I would treat everybody with kindness and friendship, but I would not follow anybody anywhere. I would not. I was on my own mission. I had my own agenda. I was doing my own thing, and I wasn't going to go following nobody down any blind alleys or, try to screw anybody over or try to act like a tough guy. I was just mind my own business, doing my own thing. And I kept myself out of trouble. I know there was a few times that was, hairy when we were in Chicago. It was on the 4th of July, and that's a really dangerous day for Chicago because fireworks are going off, and so a lot of shootings happen on the 4th of July. And we were sleeping under this big bridge. It was more like a concrete, like it was multiple layered bridge, and there was a lot. It was sheltered, so a lot of people would sleep there. And we had a group of about 8 or 9 people that we were all hanging out together, and we were laying there, and somebody drove by and shot. Like drive-by with paintballs, right?
Oh, okay. And
somebody threw firecrackers at us from the window and stuff, and so it was very much like, I mean, it was a scary moment because when it first happened, we're like, was that a gun? Like, what was that? Yeah. So there's just stuff like that, and obviously you meet sketchy people and you have close calls. Almost got hit by cars. Certain people. Yeah. To say it's not dangerous would be a lie. I mean, it was obviously very dangerous, and I don't encourage anybody to live that lifestyle. I was a very different person when I was doing it, but I am grateful that I did it. I'm grateful for the experiences I had. I'm grateful for the person I am today, and I'm like the 0.0001% that I got a lot of good out of it, and I didn't become like an absolute scumbag like so many of the people that do it do, and get into. I didn't become an alcoholic. I didn't become a heroin addict. I didn't become a crackhead. I didn't become a thief or anything like that, which is just so common amongst people that end up on the street. Is they become desperate and they start to go down really bad paths, But I was able to get good out of it because, like I said, I was doing my own thing. I was sort of on my own, in my own world, so I wanted to play music, meet people, and really that was the main thing. Was I wanted to meet people. I wanted to see the world and just get to know the scope of people in the world. I just wanted that experience. And I grew up poor, and so I just didn't ever have the money to be able to go travel and do it the right way. So I thought this is the only way I have to travel. I remember I was 13 and I met a hobo. He got off a freight train, and we're sitting out front of Tops and we're talking to him. And I just remember thinking, you can do that? You could just get on a train and go and see the country, no money, nothing. Like, that's what I want to do. You know what I mean? And so that became like my dream for years was, I'll just see the country and play music and meet people. And that's what I did. And I definitely don't regret it.
That's fascinating. And you would come, you would come back to your hometown, like from time to time, and maybe stay with your folks or something, or?
Yeah. So I stayed with my girlfriend for the most part. Me and her would travel together, and then we ended up getting a house at one point, and we lived in a house for about 2 years. And I had a recurring job in Buffalo that I could go back to that I'm still working at now. So I would come back in the off seasons and work there, and then vice versa. Sometimes flip it. Sometimes they'll be out in winter. Sometimes they'll be out in summer. And, it was good stuff though, man. Very, very good stuff. I lived in Daytona for about 9 months. Lived all over the place.
I really like this comment here. This person says, I dream of the day that orthomolecular nutritional approach to healing is a thing paired with church community. Probably won't happen in my lifetime, but I think it's bigger now. Orthomolecular medicine is a big thing where I live because I live in Oregon, where what is his name? Linus Pauling used to live here in my town, and he was the one who coined the term orthomolecular. He was big into using high doses of vitamin C.
Yes.
Orthomolecular is medicine where it means the right amount. It's it's the same root word as for Orthodox, right? It means the right amount of the right molecule.
Right.
And
I never heard that term before, orthomolecular. So that's new to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a whole I know people are into it. There's like an orthomolecular news service, and I actually take orthomolecular amounts of vitamin C for my illness, which is a lot. I take 20 grams a day most days.
Right. Have you had good effects with that? I've heard great things about like super high dose vitamin C.
Yeah. And well, I wouldn't necessarily say everybody should take that much, but when you get sick, like if you get the flu or, coof or anything like that, you can kill it. Like, you don't have to suffer from these, last time I got the flu, I woke up, I was miserable. Okay. And people say, oh man, they might doubt if it works.
Right.
But I remember I woke up and I had the flu and I knew it and I was suffering. And I said, I'm going to slam some vitamin C. And I took 12 grams at a time. I use crystal vitamin C. I dissolve it in water so you can take it. It's cheap. It's very cheap. And I just slammed that. And then within like half an hour, the flu felt like a cold. Wow. I didn't have to suffer anymore. So that was proof to me.
I'll talk to you after the show about where you get it from, because I'm curious to know that. So remind me to ask you that after the show.
Yeah. It's good to have some on hand, some crystal ascorbic acid powder.
I know a lot of like the rich people and stuff. They have these clinics that I pass by all the time when I'm delivering ice. There's IV vitamin C clinics where people will go in and they'll get IVs of high dose vitamin C's, and that's very popular.
That's a great thing to do. You'll have to pay someone to do it, of course.
Yeah,
but
it's expensive.
You can get the levels of ascorbate into your blood a lot higher using IV, but you can get it pretty high. I know all about it. I don't want to go, derail this conversation too much, but I know quite a bit about using vitamin C. Yeah, this person knows about Dr. Hoffer and all this. Cathcart.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you said paired with the church community. I definitely I could see that being a thing. I've heard a lot of people talk about how Chinese medicine is way more compatible with Orthodoxy than say like Western allopathic medicine is. You know what I mean?
Interesting.
And certainly, I mean, so this is one of the subjects I wanted to hit on, was the difference between witchcraft, herbalism, green witch sort of stuff, and using plants as medicine, because there's always like that fine line, and people are always like, when they hear herbalism, they think hippie chick, crystals, witchcraft. At least I have that association in my head, right? And it's because there is an element of that does exist. The sort of herbalist magic, right? People using it in spells, people using it in correlation with astrology, like, oh, this planet runs over this plant, and so for this illness that hits this organ, this organ's run by this planet. You know what I mean? People, there is a sort of aspect of witchcraft in herbal healing that you have to be weary of, that you have to look out for. Obviously, I don't encourage any of that stuff. I don't support any of that stuff, and I don't think it's even necessary. A lot of it is just folk medicine mixed in with a bunch of people's pagan religion, and so if you're going to an herbal practitioner that's using things like Reiki or using things like astrology, you shouldn't do that. That's not Orthodox. I do not see the church condoning that whatsoever. But that doesn't mean that you can't use the plants, and that God didn't give us these plants for medicine. Just means that we shouldn't dilute it and mix it up with demonic garbage.
And I wrote in the description about, I thought that this was a good topic for Orthodox Christianity specifically, because this would be a good knowledge. I think this is a knowledge that Orthodox Christians can this is very Orthodox, because if you're reading the Desert Fathers, which is this is the kind of books that I like to read,
Oh yeah. And I just got it. I just got it, but I don't have it. The Sayings of the Desert Fathers.
Oh, okay.
It's inside though, so I can't.
I love that. I love that kind of stuff. I love those kind of books. And so often in the lives of saints and the Desert Fathers, they say he lived on this plant that grew near his cell, like sneet. What was it? Or Saint Seraphim ate sneet. That's what he lived on, right? And or St. John Chrysostom lived on whatever grew on the hillside, wherever he was asceticizing.
Yeah.
So I think I wrote in the scripture, and hopefully I would like to think that someone out there watching this someday will become a monk, and then monasticism is the heart of Orthodoxy, and for those monks who are perfect, they go out and they become hermits, and they live
Right.
out by themselves. And those are the kind of people I'm hoping someone somewhere will someday go out into the woods and be a hermit and be praying for the world, and maybe live on some plants, live on what they. Can you do that? Can you like survive?
Absolutely. Well, that's so much. I mean, asceticism. Can you do that and be a healthy, thriving person? Well, with God's grace, anything is possible. But that ties into asceticism, right? If you're a hermit living off of wild berries and stuff, like, yeah, your body's gonna decline. You know what I mean? That's just the nature of asceticism. You're chastising your body, for the fruits of the spirit.
That's true. That's true.
So yes, people can. I mean, look at Saint Mary of Egypt. Lived in the desert for 47 years. I'm sure she didn't have the proper nutrition.
Right.
You know what I mean, I'm sure they said she looked like a wraith when she was discovered by the Father. So, yeah. It can absolutely be done. It's been done many times in the past. Is it the most healthy way to live? Absolutely not. For most of us, I would say it's a great hobby to supplement your diet and get natural wild foods in your diet, because the thing is that once you take a plant, a fruit, a vegetable, once you disconnect it from its living, thriving, plant body, it starts to die. And there's stuff called phytonutrients, which are living nutrients within plants that as soon as you take that apple from the tree, it immediately starts to decay. And if you eat that stuff super fresh, obviously it's better for you than if you pop it off, send it to South Africa to be waxed and coated, ship it back to America to be shipped to the grocery store, sit on the grocery store shelf for 2 weeks, buy it, take it home, eat it. Yeah, it's going to be less good for you than finding the apple in nature.
As time goes by, the nutrients kind of decline, and from the time that it's picked. And also, like food grown in the wild is the healthiest food humans can eat.
Yeah.
And also, like, they're gonna have, like, the wild foods are gonna have more, instead of, when we are genetically modifying, or even just using the old school where you kind of selectively breed plants.
Yeah.
They would selectively breed for example, fruit that has more sugar.
Mm-hmm.
But the wild apple, for example, it's going to be smaller, it's going to be more tart, it's going to have more vitamins and minerals and less sugar in it,
Yep.
And that's true across the board for other kind of foods you're going to find out
wild grapes. Wild grapes are very bitter, very sour. You can find so many. I mean, there are millions of grapes all over Buffalo. I mean, you can't go to a 7-Eleven without the dumpster being covered in grapevines, because the Italian immigrants brought over their vines and grow their vines in the backyard, and they just spread like wildfire. And now there's just grapes everywhere. You can find a lot of those. You can make homemade wine with it. You can make homemade brandy with it. You can make jams and all sorts of stuff with it. But yeah, so yes, you can use it to supplement your diet and get healthy, really healthy foods mixed in. You can use it to supplement your medicine, and that's the number one thing, is to take it. It gives people an opportunity to take control of their health, and you can really avoid the doctors, the prescriptions of big pharma, by focusing on your diet and your nutrition. And by, when you have a symptom like a stomach ache, a headache, a cold, flu, to go for the natural remedy instead of the pill. It will keep you in the long term out of the doctor's office, because you don't need it as nearly as much. So yeah, I absolutely, people can survive off of it, but I think for most of us it will be a sort of a nice supplementation. But I do hope, as you said, that some people may use that knowledge and that knowledge of how to find food in the wilderness to be able to help their monastic struggles or ascetic struggles. That would be amazing.
Maybe sometime down the road. It might be beyond us, Americans. I don't know, but
you never know, man. You never know. Look at Father Seraphim Rose. I mean, there's always a few. There's always a few out there. But yeah, I don't know, man. I love this this subject. I have such a strong passion for it, and I can take anybody on a walk 4 or 5 blocks and point out 30 to 40 different wild edible plants. I mean, the sheer abundance of food and medicine is astounding. Like just the massive amounts of it, and so many of what we call weeds. There's a quote that a weed is a plant whose virtues have not yet been discovered, or a weed is a plant that whose virtues are not known to the person, right? So we call things weeds. There is no such thing as a weed. Like there's just plants. There's plants, and every plant has certain things about it. It has certain alkaloids in it, has certain things it does. One interesting thing that you find when foraging is that poisons will grow next to their antidote. So something like stinging nettle, that if you touch it, it's covered in thousands of little microscopic syringe-like structures that when you touch it, injects your hand with like a toxin that stings and hurts and creates a rash. There's plants typically that grow right next to it that you can then take, crush up, rub on it, and it will make it heal better. Because if you think about it, in nature, if something's toxic, then the thing that's next to it needs to build up a defense against it. And so very often, like natives and people with knowledge of herbalism will know that if you take something that hurts, usually the thing right next to it, will help you out. Things like that. What else? I sort of lost my train of thought, but yeah, there's a lot of really interesting stuff like that.
You know what I say? I'm a groundskeeper, and I work out taking care of kind of in nature. And the way we define what a weed is, I define it as something you just don't want there. That's right. That's a weed.
Exactly. Yep. And that's what So I used to garden a lot, and I would throw seeds and just see what would come up. I'd get a bunch of different seeds and I'd throw, and it was all food or, herbs and spices and, vegetables and stuff. And then whatever popped up, I figured that's what's able to grow. Awesome. And then some weeds, we'd pull, but some weeds that I knew were edible or helpful, I would leave. And we had a sort of mix between a wild and a cultivated garden. And yeah, good stuff, man. Good stuff. Love to garden. I think that knowledge is so useful for people. I think we've lost a big portion of that.
Well, this is a very interesting. I've loved this conversation. Thank you thank you so much for coming here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. And yeah, I just want to let everybody know, channels Exposing Powerful Lies. If you want to find me, you can find me over there. We're on Rumble, we're on Patreon, and YouTube, and that's our platforms, other than Instagram and Facebook and that stuff.
And you're a mod on a lot of how many channels are you moderator on?
I lost count.
You don't even know.
Jay Dyer, DPH, Father Ananias, not Jim Bob yet, not Crucible. Over on Basel Analyzer, Maddie, a bunch of our friends, but yeah, the main ones are DPH, Jay, Father Ananias, and Primal Health. That just came because 5-6 years ago, we were all watching the same shows and really into Jay stuff, really into Tristan stuff, and me and a lot of those guys all became friends, and then we just sort of were always in the chat and just started meeting other people in the chat, and it just became a fun little community. And yeah, so we just wanted we were all very honored to be able to help out over there, and then that grew into me doing my own channel, and then a few of the other guys doing their own channels, and it's just sort of naturally happened, and it's been a lot of fun, man. It's been a lot of fun.
What is the secret to, what is your job as a moderator? What have you learned about doing that?
Well, we're just trying to avoid the bots, the people that will come in and spam stuff, people who will try to get the stream taken down by spamming the N-word or spamming the bad stuff that YouTube won't let you say. That's the main thing, is just to make sure that we don't get any.
They would take you down for that? Like what the streams, like the chat?
I don't know. But if you've got a bunch of really no words in the chat, I'm sure it doesn't help. So even if it's just for the algorithm, and it's also just a quality of life thing. Obviously, people who enjoy being in the chat don't want to have it blown up with a bunch of weird, stuff like that. And a lot of times you get these porn bots that show up and they try posting links to like porn websites.
I've seen that.
So yeah, we're just there to moderate, to make sure that no spam gets in and stuff like that. And that's really at the end of the day. And then more than that, we try to just create an environment of being friendly being helpful, answering questions, and trying to sort of keep that energy and that vibe of being friendly and just having fun. You know what I mean? Try not to direct the conversation, but we try to keep it going.
Slow Boy Whiteboard says Jerry is the mod king.
Oh, so shouts out to you, Slow Boy. Much love, sister. And yeah, the Slow Boy runs our clips channel. Best homie on the internet over there. But yeah, we've met so many great friends through doing this, and I'm just super grateful for it. And I hope to keep doing it for long into the future.
All right. Well, you know what? I think we've gone for an hour, so that I'm happy with this stream. This has been a great stream. So thank you to Jerry, Exposing Powerful Lies. The link to his channel is in the description below. So, go over there. If you're not subscribed, go over there, subscribe, check him out. I like to jump on watch your channel like when you're live, especially, so I can get up in the chat room, and it's just kind of fun. It's a fun channel. Kind of. So
I try to let the audience like participate. Like I feel like that's a big part of the show is that I use the chat as a springboard for the show a lot of times too. So yeah, absolutely, people can participate in the shows over there, and it's I hope to see you guys over there. The best way to support me is through Patreon right now. I've been trying to build that up, so if you guys want to support, that's the best place to do so.
Absolutely. Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to say?
I hope everybody has a blessed fast, and I hope everybody's attending church regularly and being an integral part of your church community. Go to church if you're not, and may God bless you guys. Please remember me, a sinner, in your prayers, and that's all.
All right. Thank you all for joining us. We'll see you at the next stream. Goodbye.